and I replace those, but,
So from the day I wrote the check,
I don't, what do you call those,
I should be able to tell, look back on the calendar because I know he
belts are-
worked on a Friday.
wide and kind of flat?
V-belts, serpentine.
It may not be this afternoon, but
Okay, let's get started.
maybe tomorrow.
As long as,
Okay.
It is Tuesday, November the 2nd, 2021, 1:30. Wilson County Commissioners Court special meeting is now in session. If y'all would join me in reciting the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done,
On earth as it is in heaven.
Give
Give us
us
this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our trespasses,
as we
as we forgive those who trespass against us.
and
Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
For
Thine
thine
is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever.
forever. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Moving right along to agenda item 2, Richard L. Jackson County Judge 2A. Discuss and take action on amending the personnel policy manual to deal with payroll policy. Okay. And what I think the reason we came was to determine, I guess, sick leave, vacation, holiday pay, and how it deals with the 40 hours actually worked. Okay? Has anybody got any suggestions?
Well, I don't necessarily have a suggestion, or it may be a suggestion. I've been here a while. Some people would think longer than I should be. But in the course of time that I've been here, if I had a situation like we had before, my guys have been paid, the one that came up that brought us here. I personally feel that as the commissioner, the supervisor, that if I sign off on it, then they should be paid. Obviously, we work a 4-day week, you work a 5-day week, you're a 4-day also. If I have a guy off on a Monday, which was your situation, I think, and he works Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I have him work on a Friday, then he needs to get, he needs to be paid. No overtime, because he hadn't worked overtime, but he should be paid for the week. And that's how I've always understood it. Because obviously I've had people in the course of the time who are off on a Monday, and if I do something with them on a Friday, you're not going to get overtime, but you'll get paid. And I personally think that's how it should be, whether it's vacation or sick time. To me, that's only fair, but that's just me.
Totally agree,
I agree.
Commissioner Waller.
I agree.
Okay, and let me get this. This is to deal with sick leave pay, vacation pay. I guess that would be the two that would apply to.
Yeah, it should.
Holiday pay?
Yeah, I guess if you worked a holiday and, yeah, if Monday's a holiday and somebody works Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday,
they would get paid for the holiday.
yeah, they should get paid for all of it, including the holiday.
Absolutely, and they would.
My opinion is it should be the same thing with vacation and sick.
Okay.
At Commissioners Court, you guys asked me to check with our surrounding counties to see what other counties are doing, so I did that. I checked with everyone in our district, Atascosa, Frio, LaSalle, and Carnes, and I have all of their responses. LaSalle was the only one that did not respond, so I went ahead and reached out to Gonzales County and Guadalupe County. Every single one of their responses, and they're here for you to read, but every one of their responses state that they will always reduce the amount of sick and vacation time to pay up to that employee's schedule, budgeted schedule amount. So those are here for your reading if you wanted to go through those. I think Christina reached out, and I don't want to speak on her behalf, but I believe she also reached out to other counties as well.
I did, I reached out to 13 counties, some in the district, some out.
To what county?
13 different counties, Austin, Burnett, Cass, Denton, Freestone, Guadalupe, Hutchinson, Carnes, Clayburgh, Schneider, Scurry, Shackelford, and Waller. And out of all those, they do the exact same thing. They get what's budgeted up to their 40 hours. Anything over, they reduce it in the payroll, and they take it out and they put it back into their bank. So out of those 13 counties, they all do it for them.
Whoa.
Because here, and I believe, and so here's what'll happen when we talk about, budgeting purposes. If you allow it to happen now, which you are not, technically you're not exceeding your budget now because we're in the beginning of the fiscal year, right? But if you allow it to happen throughout the course of the year, come August, September, and October, August, September, and then the first payroll of October, you may not have, or any official may not have enough funds available in their salary line item. And if there's not enough funds available in your budgeted salaries, you will not be able to exceed that, and therefore you're gonna have to make the decision to cut hours in order to not exceed your budget. And that is my point in trying to protect you guys from exceeding your budget by allowing that to happen, especially when it's not a common practice across counties.
Just to put a dollar figure on what Brenda's saying, I started from January till current of the amounts that were reduced, that weren't paid out, that were put back in their bank.
And this was solely sick time.
Sick time and vacation, because that's what the practice that we were doing in the office. So sick and vacation, looking at right now road and bridge departments, as well as the sheriff's, both correction and patrol, and you're looking at about 20,000. If I would have paid it out, it would have been over 20,000.
For a year or for a month?
Just from January of 2021 till now. Well, excuse me. I
For
said
10 months?
2 payrolls ago when we started doing the vacation and continue not doing the sick. So, off the top of my head,
9 months.
19, if I'm right, payrolls, possibly 20 payrolls.
Okay, I didn't check with any counties, I checked with 2 cities. Both of them do not do that. They give them their sick leave and they pay them straight time until they get 40 hours and pay them overtime. I don't know any HR people or,
I did speak
Talk
to
to-
TAC, I did speak to TAC Legal, and TAC Legal told me that it is not, because I just wanted to distinguish between what was legal and illegal for us to make sure that we're covered. It is not illegal to pay them in excess of actual number of physical hours worked. It is, and this is from TAC, these are not my words. It is not a good practice when you're going to exceed your budget by doing that because it's not something you're budgeted for. She also stated that there are some counties that have it written in their personnel policies to state you can only use sick and vacation hours to meet your scheduled, budgeted, scheduled hours to be worked. And then there are some counties who don't have it written in their policy, but they practice what they consider best practice, which is the information I'm sharing with you. So,
Well, in this instance, it was a very rare and isolated instance. It was that the employee happened to have a sick day on a Tuesday, but was called in on a Saturday for an emergency. We don't have them happen very often, but I can tell you right now, if I call one of my guys in at night or on a weekend for a down tree in the middle of a road or a flooding situation, and they don't get paid, next time I call them, they're not gonna show up.
Yeah.
We have a different set of circumstances where we have to have men that we call out for emergency situations. And that's what this whole thing is about. It's not about a regular pay situation. It's about calling a man out on a weekend or a night for an emergency situation and then not getting paid for it.
So Commissioner, to clarify, the benefit to the employee in that situation is that they would get paid for the time that they're called out. They would get credited back into their sick leave balance, credited the amount of hours that are not needed. Now, what TAC Legal told me was that if you're gonna do it for one employee, it has to be done for all employees. And so
Yep.
my concern would be, for example, it would be very detrimental in the sheriff's department if we allow this to happen and come end of the year, come August, jail commission is not going to allow him to cut hours and not have jail staff. But legally, he would not be able to exceed his budget and have people there. And so you're putting not only the sheriff at risk, but you're putting Wilson County at risk by then the possibility of our federal inmates being removed because we wouldn't have the staff for it. Because you would be illegally exceeding your budget.
Well, I would think the supervisor would need to have a better handle on what they're doing than to get into that situation.
I agree, but I
Deal we're
think
talking
that
about
leaving
again
it-
is a very isolated instance.
It's not as isolated because Ms. Smoot stated that it would have been already $20,000 just between 3 departments.
But how much of that would have actually been just mine?
Just your department is about 18,000.
That's what I was gonna say, it's about 18,000, that mine's gonna be the majority of that issue, because I've got the one got no control over when they work.
You are correct, so.
And most of yours don't work 40-hour
We don't work
weeks.
40-hour weeks.
Just the jail admin, I mean, different, but not your patrol and not your correction officers. They're different.
But how often does your jail people or deputies call in sick or have a sick day in their work deal and now are called out for?
To me, right now, the reason it's 18,000, what she's saying is because of the short staffing. I'm gonna have to call them in on their day off in order to fill staffing. So that's probably why that's 18,000 up to this point, is if I was guessing. And I know exactly why, because the only way for me to do that is to call them in. So if they took off early in the week, but I got a short shift, I'm gonna call them in on another one. So they're gonna actually show that hours. They took their 12 hours vacation early, and then at the end of the week, I made them work a 12-hour shift. So they're gonna be 12 hours over, just like that. I didn't come up with those numbers on mine, but I was in the ballpark of around 10, but I was estimating salaries. And, because that's why I pulled the exact same records to see, because I knew it would give me a pretty good total on what it was gonna be up to this point this year in doing that.
But
My whole issue with that is, in the situation I run, how do I ever let them burn the time y'all give them for vacation?
Yep.
How do I ever allow that to happen?
Right, and
If
I-
I'm in this situation and y'all aren't gonna pay them, how do I ever burn off their time and I keep it adding, stacking up over here, and they can't take it and I can't give it to them?
Well, Sheriff, and I think that's where in a couple of commissioner courts ago, we agreed to pay the vacation days when they request to use vacation but have to call in, and you guys remove the cap from vacation to allow it to roll over because of that exact situation. So since that court, we have been paying their vacation time including the hours that, the additional hours that they work.
But
Right.
getting to that point then, what we're discussing right now is, if that would have been from January, we'd been 18,000 over already. Because y'all would have paid that much to this day, if we had been doing this. So it's still the same issue, we just started it on mine. But that is something that we would need to address on this year's budget, because it wasn't addressed in payroll. if you pay that out, I'm going to be over probably 18 to 20,000 in payroll based on just what y'all have started doing this month.
As of right now,
Since that Commissioner's
yes.
Court. So that's what we're looking at right now, is that's gonna happen based on this. And I knew it was gonna be, I got the majority of the employees. I work a weird system because we can't control when we need people to work. So that's gonna happen with me, and I knew it would. That's why I was trying to come up with a dollar amount, because I knew I was the biggest effect. And,
But you also have a lot of holes open that haven't been filled where.
well, see, but in all honesty, that's the way I look at it, is if I'm holding 2 vacancies all year long, odds and ends, I mean, they rotate, but I hold 2 vacancies. That salary is gonna pay, that unused salary is gonna pay that, and it'll be soaked up into what my budget was to begin with.
Sure, and
It
that's-
should.
that's why
And in my situation, that's usually true. I am going to have a vacancy or so here and there, and if it runs for a couple of months, that's pretty much gonna eat up that extra time, and I shouldn't be in a bind
Right.
based on the way my operation
Right, and
is also.
that's just
So-
my concern, especially for the sheriff's department. I mean, I stay on top of it every month, and as we get closer, then I would have to notify the sheriff or a commissioner or Dawn or anyone to say, hey, you don't have any money left in your salary line item, you're going to have to cut hours because you cannot exceed it.
I
So,
don't recall that ever happened, but here's the deal, like, the sheriff was saying, and like, Jalen alluded to, okay, if there's a salary or 2 salaries open for an extended period of time, that leaves a lot of money left in that salary budget line item.
Unless they get overtime. I think overtime is what gets
Is,
your budgets.
and overtime's gonna happen, but here's another deal, like, it's gonna happen to the sheriff, same thing happened to Commissioner Perdola, or could happen, okay? If he's calling these people in and they're taking the time back away from them, it's not gonna be as easy to call them back in.
And our deal is a very rare instance. It's totally
Compared to
different
the
from the
sheriff's
sheriff's department, totally different.
And as
It
far
is,
as,
but it isn't. I understand that, but we don't call our guys in, but on a very limited
and
number
that's
of
all,
times.
all of them. Any office that's not gonna come into a play, like Dawn's or Eva's or Debbie's, it's gonna be different, because that doesn't happen that often.
right, and you're right.
It's gonna be mostly in the sheriff's office. And like I said, you got 2 salaries open now or 3?
Right now, as of this morning, I got 4 salaries open in the
4
jail,
salaries
and I got
open?
4 or 5 in the
That's-
sheriff's office.
Make it up a lot,
Right.
right there.
It's just that if a policy is going to be set, it's department-wide, so it wouldn't matter if it's just a one-time occurrence for Commissioner Perdola or a 20-time occurrence for the sheriff, because labor law does not allow us to distinguish between employees.
Oh, what labor law doesn't,
How does labor law allow us to call somebody in on an emergency situation and not pay them?
what does labor law not allow?
Exactly what I said earlier, the law requires us to pay for physical hours worked. Then it is county policy on what is determined after that. So by law, labor law, we have to pay for the physical hours worked.
Yes,
Right, we do not have to pay.
we do not have to pay for the others. But if we pay over and above, they don't care. They're
No, they-
tickled to death that we're doing that.
No, they don't, but what would happen would be our budget.
I know, but what we're talking about is not gonna come anywhere near having to worry about labor law.
No, what TAC was making clear was that that we need to be sure that we understand that it applies for all county employees, not
Yes.
just one
Yes.
department.
Yes.
Correct. That's the
But,
only reference I was
but
making.
our personnel policy is not even across the board anyway. So, but and here's my opinion, I think that, however the timesheet is turned in and signed by the employee and the supervisor is how it should be paid.
Okay, and,
And if anything is taken back, it should be at the supervisor and employee's knowledge.
okay, and so, and that is your choice. What I'm saying is, when it comes close to the end of the year, you can't argue with me when I tell you if a department is does not have enough money for salaries. That's all that's my position as the auditor, to inform you or any elected official. So as long as you are aware that I won't sign off on payroll checks if it gets to that point, because there's no money to pay.
If it gets to that point,
Yes.
the Commissioners Court does have an option, and that's the fund balance. I don't like to use that, don't even like to use that word, but, it could be used, and if, what's it used for? There's no more bigger emergency than to pay a salary.
But I do think that timesheets should not be adjusted or changed once we sign them and turn them in without our knowledge. We need the opportunity to go to that employee and say, look, here's what's going on, before they quit us or just, we can't, get any help to come in on a.
Yeah, because I know there was
designated basis.
some concern about the employees wanted to save their sick leave. This will allow that too.
No, I was just asking what Commissioner Cardilla is saying, so he's saying that the supervisors are not being informed when it's being changed?
They have been. I will admit, in the very beginning, there was phone calls made to say, you don't have to use all this. Yes, there were. I don't know if they were not contacted, but again, there was not a lot of instance on this situation, but other ones were contacted. But yes, they've been contacted. I don't know if there's a certain situation that I'm not aware of, especially Commissioner Perella, that you might be referencing to.
We're referencing to Commissioner Files.
And he was
Instance.
contacted on that one timesheet, yes.
But not the other one.
I just got a question for Christina, if you don't mind. Who at my office would have been contacted in reference to those that I pulled? Because I wasn't, so I wasn't aware we'd had any changes. Who in my office would have been contacted so I could verify that they have been being contacted about this and I just wasn't aware of it?
If it was on the correctional officer side, there were emails that have been done previous, or like I did get with Jalen, if it was like she knew if they were out sick or whatever, I just verified that. On the deputy side of it, sometimes I reached out to them personally, just to let them know. I did do that, but a lot of them were correctional officer side than the deputy side of them.
So from,
If
from-
it was
No, I
in
did not
the-
contact
If it was
you
a
directly.
correction side, it would have went through Liz or Heather or somebody in their
Yes,
side
probably
or
not
the
Heather.
actual employee.
Recently, Heather, I know there's been emails going out, but in the past, just communication over the phone, yes. With Liz or someone you knew, yes. And that is just something I was following, my previous supervisor, that was the policy, the procedure she wanted me to take on it. And we did speak with somebody, and so like I said, there was not, actual all the time documentation, besides per so-and-so reducing the hours. A lot of the departments, are staying within that 40, a lot of them are good on that. It's just like you said, your situation is different, completely understandable, and on these.
Yeah, and I think because for the most part, every elected official knows that, that it's an offense to exceed their budget, so they're gonna wanna stay within their budget, including salaries.
I see both sides of the issue. I mean, it's an issue to where there are two sides. From the standpoint of Commissioner File, I don't know what all his options were that day. He could have had somebody else come in and he could have paid 15 extra hours because it would have been time and a half as opposed to,
That he had budgeted,
yeah.
yeah.
That, if it had been paid the 10 hours and not taken away from the vacation, it would have cost him 10 hours. If he had gone to someone else, and what I would have done in that instance is, if I had somebody that was off Monday for a doctor's appointment or whatever, I'd go to that person first, assuming they had the skills that I needed.
He called everybody in that day.
You called all of them in.
Yes, it was
Okay.
the Saturday for the reclamation deal.
Well, and it's hard, it's hard to say no when you call everybody in.
That's,
But,
that's
you know,
what
and
we're
you
doing,
can't-
that's what we're doing here.
And I just think maybe because from an employee standpoint, an employee who does not have 480 hours of sick time banked, who may only have 20 hours, calling in an employee on Saturday who took a sick day on Monday, they're gonna probably wanna save those 8 hours of sick time so
I
that
want
they
that
can
employee to
increase.
tell me that, because I can't think of one that would.
No, but,
I'm
but
gonna-
at the same time, what I would have done in that instance, if I was gonna call, I'm not saying you did anything wrong, Commissioner. I'm just saying if I was gonna call an employee in, I would have said, hey, do you want overtime? Or do you want this to go back to your sick time? And make it their decision. Because if that guy would have said, you know, I don't have much sick time, can we just erase Monday and show that I work Tuesday, Wednesday, you know, yada, 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 Wednesday, Thursday, anyhow.
And I believe that's been the practice,
To,
right?
to me, that would be an option that he would exercise with the employee.
And I did ask that.
Do you want to use your sick time? Or, you know, you're not going to get time and a half,
Oh,
but you'll get,
And the employee.
you'll get
wouldn't
10
paid.
hours.
yes.
Everybody else got 15 hours pay. And so everybody else got 55 and he got 40. It's not going to take long for that to be a problem. Fortunately, we don't have a lot of issues like that.
That's right.
And-
Very,
and
very
that's the-
limited instances.
And that's the key there, is that we're not, the sheriff's
Is there a
office is a
separate
different
line
critter.
item for overtime, or is it just added in with the wages?
It's a separate line item.
Overtime is a separate line item.
Yep. But overages like that could be charged to overtime.
Well, but she
says
said
no.
no.
They can't because overtime is paid at time and a half. So those hours get allocated to your overtime line item at time and a half. Whereas straight hours, you would not be able to do that.
I've never exceeded my overtime budget,
Yeah.
so,
You could move it at the
so I don't know what it would be, but, you know, if it came to it, I personally would look at that as total salary.
Okay, what, if they do it for vacation or holiday vacation time, what is that coded? How does that?
It comes out of the,
It comes out of their salary, which is why we would be over budget because you guys changed the cap several courts ago to
But
allow.
you're saying you're doing that for the sheriff's office now?
Yes, because at the time that you guys
Why
just
can't we
voted
do
on
that for
that.
every office?
No, we are. It is across the board. When you guys changed the cap for vacation, that's the time that we started paying out vacation. So yes, it could potentially cause you to go over budget as well by allowing that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously going into the budget season, this hadn't happened, so she didn't, and the budget was not prepared according to what we're talking about right now. So I mean, it behooves all of us to just be mindful of that, and, you know, who knows if we get a hurricane, another freeze, whatever, you know, we may have to make some adjustments, if that's.
Or the rain we got 2 weeks ago.
Right. Well, that you got for the second time 2 weeks ago. Yeah. I mean, and there's things like that come up. But, I mean, I think most of us have, you know, like the sheriff was saying, I mean, I'm in the same boat. Right now, I was short an employee for about 3 or 4 weeks. So I've got 3 or 4 weeks of bank. And as long as I remember that, and I don't get carried away with paying everybody all the time, I can make my budget. But that just depends on what comes up. I mean, none of us can predict what's really happening, and I just think that
I don't have any,
all electeds and department heads need to be monitoring that, and I don't know that anybody has been doing that, and that's, her job is to watch us and make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do.
in
But at the
the,
same time, we need to know when changes are made, which I'm fixing to bring up another question. My guys were called out during the snow and ice this past winter, while everybody else was sitting at home, cozy, comfy, warm, including myself out in the snow and ice for several days. So when my guys got paid, did they just get paid like everybody else did when everybody else was sitting at home getting paid? When it was county holiday and my guys are out, got called out and they're out in the freezing cold and they didn't get paid any different than everybody else did while they were sitting home nice and warm while we were out freezing? Well, you see what I'm saying? It was a county, the whole county was off, but my department was called out, and we were on maintainers and brooms and, putting gravel on roads so traffic could still move, and EMS, and everybody was,
Assisting text.
yeah,
As well.
I was assisting Tech Dot. So my guys got paid the same as everybody else that were sitting home nice and warm?
Yeah.
I don't think that's right.
Unless they worked overtime.
You see what I'm
Okay.
saying, Gary?
Is there gonna, are we gonna
Yeah,
take
no,
any?
no, I agree with you. I mean, we had the same issue. I mean, you know, everybody else is at home and
Everybody else is at home,
Something that should be addressed in the personnel.
nice and warm, and we're out there assisting Tech Dot at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, midnight. We were out there.
Yeah, they didn't have the right kind of equipment.
They didn't have
That's hard to
enough-
believe.
They didn't have enough equipment or enough manpower.
That's right.
But they didn't claim any since the county closed down, because this, they got paid. Technically, that wasn't physical work hours, so it could have been straight time. I don't know if we coded as holiday, it could have been considered straight time. I don't know if it was paid at time and a half. But it wasn't
About the bad weather days.
Yes.
Yeah, since the county was closed, they got paid, but I don't know if it was paid at double time or time and a half, or it would have been
Straight
straight time.
time.
But
Because
yes,
I
there
remember
was,
having this conversation with you,
Yeah.
it was not.
it wasn't paid at.
See, and I don't think that's fair.
Like, they were working.
If we're called out, we were out at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, back the next morning at 6 a.m., loading gravel and
You
roads.
talking about like during the week?
Yes.
I know during the week, precinct 3 assisted
Nice and warm.
Tech Dot. I don't know, were your guys out?
Yes.
Were your guys, or you weren't here?
not all of
You
them.
were here.
Yeah, warmer than we were.
I wouldn't know that because I did come in and do payroll. I came in the office and had a computer, didn't have any way of doing it at home. My computer didn't work that day, so I actually come up here. So if I put 8 to 5 on my timesheet, no one would know whether I was at home 8 to 5 not getting, or getting paid, not doing anything, or they were working. So I would have known that. If they were physically out in the job, I would have known that, to know to pay them holiday pay or Delta. I don't. I mean, knowing that y'all were probably working on.
But there's, the only, I don't know a good way to approach that.
In
Because do
my
you not pay the
opinion-
people that don't come in?
Well,
And you tell them to stay home?
and I didn't know.
But
I
then if
mean-
you tell them to come in, they're gonna try to think of a way to stay home.
So in my opinion, that should have been probably treated the same as a county holiday. So an employee on a county holiday is off and they're going to get paid their 8 hours for county holiday pay, and you call them into work, they get paid the hours that they physically worked plus their holiday pay. I'm not aware that these gentlemen, whoever came in, and how do you track that? Because how would you,
Yeah,
right,
there's not a.
right, there's not, I mean, but that would go for all
Everybody turned in a
departments.
regular timesheet whether they were there or not.
Right,
Right.
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 So
And
we
that-
would,
And that was her point is,
we
she
would
has
never
no way
know.
of knowing whether I was there or somebody else or whoever,
Right.
because there's no way
That's
to
something,
know.
okay.
So how do we address that in the
That's,
future?
and B, we're gonna address that in just a minute. We're gonna appoint a committee. Are we gonna take any action on A? If we're not, let's move on to
You
B.
know, I'll make a motion, Judge, that we pay employees if they take sick leave, vacation, whatever they take.
Okay, in other words, pay the employees how the timesheet is turned in.
Yes.
no matter if they exceed the number of hours that is.
We'll worry about that later.
Yes.
I don't think it's gonna happen, but if it does, we can discuss that, and we can, except for emergencies, we've taken $600,000 out of the fund balance and put a new roof on the jail. I bet we can take $10,000 or $15,000 out to pay employees.
Just keep in mind, it hasn't happened of going over budget with vacation sake, because with being in payroll for that long, that's the practice that we've been doing. That's why y'all haven't went over budget, because of the procedure I was told to do. And that's why you haven't went over budget. I know y'all keep saying we haven't went over budget, that's why.
Explain that to me again?
Y'all are saying that you haven't went over budget yet.
I didn't say we hadn't run over budget, but evidently we haven't.
Sick and vacation. That's what I'm saying. Due to sick and vacation, y'all haven't exceeded that. It's because we've been reducing the hours to meet the 40. So I'm just saying, keep in mind, but going back, doing the numbers, that was only from January. That wasn't from a whole fiscal year, from October. That was just starting in January. And yes, a majority of it was the sheriff's area. But just keep that in mind, if you're gonna do it across the board, that was at $20,000 for 9 months.
Well, I think we're talking about two different horses. We were talking about Commissioner Files' instance where his man was called in on an emergency situation and wasn't paid.
He was
He got-
paid, Commissioner.
Just a
No,
minute,
but he
I'm not
wasn't
through.
paid.
I'm not through. He got 40 hours, which we've agreed to pay him sick leave, right?
The amount of sick leave needed to make his 40 hours.
Okay? He was called in an emergency situation and worked an extra, how many hours? 8?
One was 6 and another guy was 2. Different occasions.
Okay, we're either paying sick leave or we're not.
Well,
We
and
can't, you can't take it away from them and not when we're calling men in to do on an emergency situation.
So may I ask, with all of the opinions from all of the counties that we got, we are going to be the only ones doing it different?
Yes, we don't have to always agree with other counties.
That's,
But it's-
I-
but it's
I-
best
I-
practice.
My deal is, I think that the employee should be compensated how the employee wants. However, the timesheet, okay, because I know some people were concerned that these people want their time, to put their sick leave back in the bank, allow the supervisor and that person to get together and put their sick leave back in the bank. But if they've got 400 and something hours of sick leave and would rather have the compensation, let them be compensated for it. That's the way.
So it'll be up to the department head?
Yes.
How you wanna do that?
Yes.
Because like right now is, of course, tax season. We've got thousands and thousands of payments waiting to be processed. I have 2 employees that were sick yesterday and today. So with what y'all are trying to implement, I can have them work tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday, and they're gonna get paid 50 hours.
However you and them want to pay it, is how it
But
would be.
without exceeding your
If
budget.
they want the sick leave,
I had 2 men
give
out
them the sick
yesterday too.
leave. If they want to be compensated for it, take their sick leave away from them and pay them for the time they worked.
But you have to look at your budget.
And if they were here those days, would they be working overtime?
Right now we do, yes.
I understand that, but if they were here, those people would be working overtime.
You mean if they were here yesterday and today?
Yes.
Yes, we work overtime.
What they would do is they'd get paid up to 40 hours, and then after the 40 hours physically worked, then they get paid time and a half.
Right, which she has an overtime budget.
but we're
Yeah,
not talking
that's
about
what it is.
overtime.
So that's-
However,
we're not talking
the-
about overtime.
The supervisor and the employee turn that time sheet in, that's how it's taken.
Yeah, but no, if they take a sick day yesterday, a sick day today, and they work tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday, that's gonna be 50 hours of straight time.
Yep, nope.
Yes.
40 hours
If
of,
they haven't.
40 hours, let's see, how many hours did they actually work? 30? Then they'll get,
And 20 sick leave, 50 hours on a 40-hour budget.
if they, but they get 20 hours taken out of their sick leave.
I'm not gonna do that. Yes. I'm just,
Well, I would if I needed, if I needed to do what I saw my job as being, to keep from falling behind, then I would do that. But it seems to me that,
No, but
why can't the excess be charged to the overtime budget?
But
I mean,
if
you got salaries there, so if you happen to keep all your positions full all year, then you have no room for that, but, we have a small overtime budget, it's not very big, but
Then
it's
I would
small.
recommend, for future budget purposes, you eliminate the overtime line item and increase your salary line item. So then we don't have to keep it, because my job is to make sure that everything's in the right buckets, right? So if you don't have something that you can't put something into, then that alleviates the problem. But I think what Dawn is saying is, to answer your question, Commissioner Wiley, she's still gonna bring her girls in, but what she would not authorize prior to whatever decision's gonna be made, she would not allow them to get paid sick leave for the 2 days that they got off in addition to the extra hours worked, because she knows that that's within her budget.
I understand. I guess my question is, and I'm not questioning your employees, because I don't know them other than when I pay whatever it is I pay, is if I'd taken a couple of days off and I was gonna have to work, 2 extra days, I might be sick again. I mean, that's, I don't know.
Well, sure, because employees are gonna know that it's going to be permissible to use sick time however they see fit. So if they wanna take off 3 days and get 24 hours of sick leave and then work 40 hours, we're gonna pay them 40 plus 16, or 24, actually, 64 hours total.
Not
So-
doubt, seriously, if anybody's gonna put 64 hours in, let it be somebody with the sheriff's office.
I'm just using an
It'll
example.
be a
that
few
could happen.
hours.
Correct.
Well, maybe there needs, I'm in agreement with Commissioner File. We haven't voted or anything, but I'm in agreement with him. Maybe it isn't just a blank check. You can't take 3 days off, probably. And, you know, if you work Monday and you're off Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in my group, you're probably not going to be up to working on Friday. Maybe there should be a cap as to how many hours could be used in the course of a week.
Well, after you work your third day off, you're supposed to go to the doctor.
Get
Have a
yes,
doctor's.
anyway.
So that's a good point, but you go to the doctor, you come in, the doctor says, yeah, well, you know, Larry can come back to work, yada, yada, yada. But Larry may not be feeling all that great, but the doctor says I'm not contagious. I don't know. We may be making it more complicated than it is. It just,
I'm confused on the one that Dawn brought up. I mean, however you turn your timesheet in is how it should be paid. If you turn it in for them taking 20 hours of sick leave and add that to what hours they worked, if they worked 30 hours, it would be 50 hours. Okay?
Which at
But,
the end of the budget.
but they only actually worked 30.
Right.
But their sick leave has been reduced. That's what we give it to them for to use. That's what I was under the impression.
But y'all are saying not to reduce the sick.
Whoa, no.
No.
I'm not saying that. I've been for however it's turned in on the timesheet. If the employee wants to reduce their sick leave, let them reduce. If they want to save their sick leave, if it's okay with the supervisor or the official or whoever, let them save their sick leave. It's how it's turned in on the timesheet. It gives them a little bit of flexibility. If the people really want to save their sick leave, they have an option to do that. It's left up to the employee and their supervisor, official, or department head.
But come into the year, if I allow my employees to do that, y'all are gonna doctor it by pulling it out of the other funds.
Where did that come from? No,
That's
it's
what was
a,
said earlier.
what's that?
That's what was said earlier.
What was said?
If a department head goes over on their budget,
No, if the department head goes over on their budget, we will fix that. We're not gonna do anything to the employee. The employee said, that if we have to pull money out of the fund balance, that's what'll have to happen.
But y'all have changed the whole deal around. We were talking about one employee on one instance.
Yeah.
And now then we're talking about all of these employees and these.
How do you get other,
Departments, I mean.
you know, the,
how does it change if you pay the way it's turned in by the supervisor? Then how does it get where it's not fair?
I guess supervisors just have to use their judgment and their brains.
Yes, that's why they've been elected, that's why they've been appointed, or whatever.
well, and I would think that you would review where we stand on salaries, and, you know, you have the potential of, I don't know how long they'd work for the county, but some supervisor that would allow their employees to take advantage of that.
That's the supervisor's,
Well, I understand. I mean,
Fault.
it would, you would need to monitor in the course of the year, the key departments and, you know, how do they stand to their budget? To me, of course, the supervisor that does that's probably not gonna be with the county too long, because when you get to that, then you're cheating. We're not cheating, we're talking about being fair, I think is our conversation.
And I think that's probably where I see differences, because I feel like knowingly paying in excess of what's needed and pulling it from the fund balance at the end of the year in,
I'm gonna be honest, I don't think we're gonna have to pull from the
No,
fund balance.
and-
I really
and I
do
hope
not.
not.
I think that there's gonna be salaries left over, because we've got 4 open salaries right now in the sheriff's office. I don't know how many people, has everybody got a full slate of employees? If something happens, if one of your girls leaves, you're not gonna bring somebody in the morning and replace her. There's gonna be times there. There's gonna be money left over in the salary, line items at the end of the year.
I'm short one employee and have been since the first of the year.
Two.
I'm short one since November of last year.
That don't count last year.
Last year doesn't count.
No.
Well, I'm short.
It does if you
This year
budgeted
still.
This year for that vacancy.
It counted
Still
to-
short.
It's counted to the guy that's not here anymore, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Still short.
so I guess for budgeting purpose next year, what would be the purpose of budgeting a budgeting salaries according to a scheduled work week? Because if it's less work on my end, by all means, I'll take it. So if we're gonna.
Okay, now we're talking about people coming in and working outside of their scheduled
Right.
work days.
Right.
That doesn't happen very often.
No, right, but what I'm asking is what's the point in budgeting for a scheduled work week if we're going to allow an open-ended?
Why are we giving them sick leave to begin with?
But Judge, I'm just asking you, because the sick leave policy is there to make up for hours that they're not getting paid because they're at home sick. When sick leave is used, it's used in lieu of the hours that are missed, which equals to the hours that are budgeted. So all I'm asking is what is the point in budgeting a scheduled 40-hour shift if you're going to allow it to be paid in excess of that? You're knowingly and willingly paying an employee beyond the 40 hours per week that's budgeted.
And if they work overtime, we pay them in excess of that.
Correct, because we have overtime budgeted for that specific reason. That's all.
And here's
I'm
my
saying.
deal, we've got overtime, but it cannot be used to pay this person for coming in and working on Saturday. It's outside that person's scheduled workday. If that person had worked 40 hours, he'd be getting money out of that overtime
Yes.
deal.
That's true. But that's back to what.
And here's the deal. All we have to do is add a line item for whatever we're talking about, this other. It won't be a very big one because it doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, we
Instead of
started
taking it
talking-
away or saying we can't do that, let's make the other line item.
Put it in the budget for next year.
Put it in the budget for next year. And my deal is, why can't we, if we have to, the Commissioners Court can transfer some money out of the overtime line item into wherever it needs to go. Because that's what actually this is. It's overtime, not necessarily really worked overtime, but it's overtime.
And then what happens when you don't have any money left in your overtime line item and you need an employee to work?
Well, then how do we know we're not gonna have a bunch of overtime hours?
Y'all have taken the
It's a guess
hill
to
and turned it
begin
into a
with.
mountain.
Would it not make more sense for y'all to amend the personnel policy to take these circumstances into consideration, like for emergency purposes?
Okay.
Or instead of opening up to
You can,
everybody?
but if what she doing,
Okay, now we're talking different budget. Okay, Dawn, wouldn't you want to be in control? Talk to your employee. Do you want to get paid overtime, or do you want to get the overtime saved in the bank? And turn it in how you want it paid.
Absolutely.
That's this simple, that's all
What this is all about.
there's nothing complicated about that. There's nothing in the policy manual saying how anything's paid.
I mean, basically, it all comes
Not that I
back
could
to
find.
your elected official or department head signing off on that timesheet.
Yes.
Knowing
Policy
whether or
manual's
not they've
good.
got money in their budget, or they don't. That's what it comes down to.
Well, your department head ought to be a little more on top of their job than that.
Yeah, but here you're gonna be paying overtime. Do you know how much overtime you've got? Do you know when you have to stop?
Getting into a whole nother,
Yes, sir.
whole nother deal.
And when you have employees that are not, because this other line item will not be very big. you're not gonna have that many girls that are sick and then working overtime.
Right, well,
That's gonna be very seldom.
yeah.
I really don't see where the difficulty is here. We've got money budgeted to do all of this stuff. It's just gotta be put in the right place.
Did you exceed your salary budget this year?
Okay, let's clarify the motion that you've got.
I make, my motion, Judge, is that we pay these employees how the timesheet is turned in, and we pay them for that they take off sick leave, funeral leave,
Okay.
Vacation.
Pay the employee how the timesheet's turned in.
yes.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Fowles, second by Commissioner Wiley, that we pay the employee on the timesheet how it's turned in with the supervisor and the employee's signature, correct? Is there any more discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So, let's move on to the next one. Okay, agenda item 2B, discuss and take action on appointing a committee to review and update the personnel policy manual.
Judge, the manual, and I got a text from Kathy, or an email. We did update that in 2015. We put a lot of time in it, on it. She put a lot of time on it. I think it needs to be reviewed. I think what we just voted on needs to be changed. It needs to change.
Needs to be added to it.
But I think it needs to be reviewed just to make certain that there isn't some other little something that fell through the crack. From the standpoint of completely redoing the manual, my opinion is that's not necessary. But I think to have a committee to sit down and just review it and see if there's something there, maybe, I don't know.
So that's how it's in the, to review and update the personnel, it doesn't say rewrite it.
Yeah. Yeah, but in 2015, we didn't have COVID or any of that kind of stuff. I don't know if that would change anything as to within the manual or not, but we have it now. And there may be some issues that we dealt with in the course of all this need to be addressed. So, yeah, I think we need to set up.
And it looks like something needs to be done with the timesheet too, that needs to be revised somehow or updated. But yeah, at the state conference 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, the HR specialist that presented on that said that we should definitely review our manuals every 5 years. And that there's about 3 or 4 updates from TAC that we need, that are not in our current policy. And I know Jalen's aware of some of them. We had that discussion. So there are some things that we need to look at and update.
Okay, let me suggest, that I appoint Commissioner Martin to this committee to be the chair, Commissioner Perdola, Don wanted to be on it,
Treasurer ought to be on
what's that?
it. I said the treasurer probably ought to be.
Okay, Christina,
And you need somebody from the sheriff.
Sheriff, yeah.
and the sheriff,
Do we need HR?
and yes,
HR.
HR.
That goes without saying.
That kind of, you'd have to go whether you were on it or not.
And Kathy, of course.
And yes. You're not? Okay, then we,
Not?
She reviews it. She doesn't have it.
Oh, okay. All right.
What did y'all say about Kathy? I can't hear this.
She's not going to be on it.
Okay, thank you.
okay, and this is to bring back,
What, Judge Nikki?
what's that?
I'll volunteer if you need another person.
Okay, then we'll put you on there, Nikki.
Well, yeah.
This is gonna be, that'll make it odd. I mean,
What
yeah,
about the
that'll make it odd, I guess, what else can you say?
Yeah, well, there you go. Now you know what he thinks. Did you put someone from the sheriff's department on there?
Yes, I'll put the sheriff.
Okay.
Okay, the committee will consist of
Anybody dependable?
Commissioner Martin as the chair, then Commissioner Padola, Tax Assessor Connector Don Barnett, Interim County Treasurer Christina Moots, Sheriff Stewart, HR General Specialist Jalen Bodiford, and Librarian Extraordinaire Nikki Storr.
Sounds good.
Okay, we've got that done. And at 2:25, we're
Judge, I
adjourned.
gotta,
Are we
whoa.
making a motion on that?
yes,
Okay, we need a motion, then let's vote on it then.
I'll make a motion that we set up a committee to review and update the personnel policy manual.
This committee. The committee stated,
Yes,
Yes.
okay.
second.
Motion by Wiley, second by Commissioner Perdola. Is there any more discussion, additions? All in
I
favor?
got something, but I guess it won't fall out of that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Motion carries. What have you got?
What do you do with an employee that's maxed out on sick leave right now? 480,
They lose it.
they lose for the rest of the year.
Yep. For the rest of their tenure with the county, until they get down
So
to,
he works and don't get no sick leave.
No, don't get any extra. He gets
That's what I
40, he keeps his
no, it's capped. at
480
480.
hours, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
You would have to use some of it to regain it back, to 480, but there's a cap at 480, they cannot go
Yeah.
over that. Once they hit that, they're not gonna accrue any longer until they use it.
Years ago, it was 240,
Yeah.
but that's
That's
it.
12, yeah, that's 12 weeks.
12 weeks, so that's,
And my wife said that some companies will only allow you so many sick days per quarter.
well, the standard now in corporations is that you get so many personal days in the course of the year, and those personal days are vacation days and sick days, and it doesn't carry over.
That's what Karnes County does. Karnes County does a PTO policy where it's all included, and they pay up to the scheduled shift taking from their PTO.
And that's something that maybe the county ought to look at in the next budget year, perhaps. I don't know what you do if all the
Okay,
people that
then
have
we'd have,
sick
that would
leave
be a
and so
change in our
forth.
personnel policy manual, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, we'd have to agree that we were going to do it, and then it would change the
Yeah.
personnel policy menu. I don't know that, to me, that kind of makes sense. Then you don't have all the other issues when someone leaves. You pay them for whatever it is they haven't used in the course of that year.
Yeah, and that's where the issue would come in for PTO. If you put it into the policy that they'll get paid out, then it doesn't matter if it's sick or vacation because it's all lumped together. Versus now, we're protected from having to pay out 480 hours of sick leave.
Yep.
Or we'll probably spend it anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Okay. Then we're adjourned at 2:27.
All right.